Once again, here's the Valley's longest reigning talk host. Hey, we never said he was any good. Fred Holland on 1450 AM and 105.3 FM, WTKI Talk.
We got that patchy fog before 8, so we got, I haven't seen it, I hadn't heard about it, but apparently it's there. Sunny today and that 20-mile-per-hour breeze, gusty breeze again, too. And we'll get to, it's going to feel like, well, it's not going to feel like anything but 92 today. We are going to get a heat index tomorrow. Rachel Bryars joins us, Senior Fellow at Alabama Policy Institute. And Rachel, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. It's Friday. I'm talking to you, Fred. It's a good day.
Yeah, it is Friday. That's for sure. Okay, so you've this op-ed on, and this is good. School choice equals tax choice in Alabama. We've been into this, and I've heard bits and pieces from various sides on this whole Accountability Act. But you point out in this thing that this is sometimes a lifesaver for some parents, and they've actually voiced that, right?
Absolutely. And I think that, I don't know if most Alabamians know that the scholarships that help very low income, mostly minority students, transfer out of sometimes failing, often just underperforming schools into better schools for their families. Most Alabamians probably don't know that you can send some of your income tax liability. This is money that you're already paying to the state of Alabama. You can send that to fund these scholarships at absolutely zero cost to you. And it's a tax credit, which is different, of course, than a charitable deduction. So I was interested to kind of get into it and see how easy it was to do. And then I kept hearing from other folks who said, oh, I didn't even know you could do that. Really? I can choose where some of my income tax goes? Well, I want to do that. And I especially want to do it if it helps students go to schools that are going to change the trajectory of their life.
But, you're going to hear from the critics who say, well, wait a minute, this is harming public schools. And I've heard the argument, too, that, this is just making a bunch of politicians' friends rich. They don't give me any other information. They just say, well, that's what's happening. There is some criticism to this plan. How do you? But then you have these stories about, my kid was being bullied, threatened in school, and we had the opportunity to put him or her on something else. I mean, it is choice, but it's not necessary. This Accountability Act is still have some tinkering to do, or is it working well?
I think it's working well. It's a very small program. So we're talking about a huge education trust fund budget that's grown every year. It's growing from its high water mark in 2007. So we're regaining the funds that were in that education trust fund, and we're talking about 0.5% of that ETF that is up in the billions of dollars. So we're talking about a very, very small amount that goes to fund the scholarships. And I think that advocates for school choice would say, hey, we need public schools, obviously. This is not meant to replace public schools. It's meant to be a relief valve for some of those folks who are just stuck in bad situations. Maybe their school is working hard to improve. The teachers are working hard. Everybody's trying to improve the school. But that kid is in that school at that moment. And if they have an opportunity to go to a different school that might serve their needs in a better way, then that's what this small amount of money does for a handful of students in Alabama. It serves roughly 4,000 students across the state. All of them qualify for free or reduced price lunches. So it's folks who have absolutely no other way to go to another school. They say often that they can't afford to move. They certainly can't afford to go to private school, and they're stuck. They're stuck in the school that they're zoned for. So when you think about what are our tax dollars for? Are they to keep a certain school alive? Are they to fund bureaucracy even in a school? That's not what the tax dollar is for. That tax dollar that we send is actually to educate that student. So it's not taking money away from the purpose of that tax money, which was to send a child to school and give them the best shot that they have to be educated.
All right. So, in the bars, just so people know, the bar's kind of set high, right? I mean, you can't just decide tomorrow that you're going to take this opportunity. You got to show there's a issue, right?
Right. So you have to apply and be accepted. And it's not even just private schools, Fred. If somebody is in a public school and wants to transfer to another public school, this money can also help them do that. So it's private schools that are part of the program. Not every private school is. You have to have a reason to transfer. You have to apply. You have to be accepted. There really are several steps and several layers to this. But I think that for getting back to this school choices tax choice, there are easy ways for folks who are listening right now and thinking, boy, this sounds interesting. I can help somebody who's in a bad situation go to a different school, and boy, I can do that without absolutely any cost to me. That's something I want to do. There's easy steps to do that.
All right. So how do they do that? If they want to get started on helping somebody, what do they do?
Okay. Well, I'll run through it real quick. You just think about maybe how much you spent in income tax last year. You're able to send about half of that to these scholarships. You go on the My Alabama Taxes website. That's a Department of Revenue site. Sign up for an account. Follow the instructions for the Alabama Accountability Act tax credit scholarships. It's going to walk you through that process. You send a check to one of the scholarship granting organizations within 30 days. And then when you do your taxes for next year, you just fill out the form and you deduct how much you owe by the amount that you donated.
All right. I want you to stick around because you got me intrigued by Alabama
without all that
Epstein.
screaming, because it's all about the gin and juice.
Hey, can you hang on and talk about Epstein?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Hope
Hang
that was
on.
okay.
All right. We're good? We're good for another segment?
Absolutely.
Okay. We're good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, Fred. How are you?
Oh, just, running hard and making some, we picked up, I think if we get this one today, we'll have 3 new clients this month. So
Wow, congratulations.
We're
That's
there.
awesome. Did you end up working with the new sales guy you said might be moving up?
Nah, he bombed. Oh, you mean the one that I was talking about that might come up from Florida?
Yeah.
Is that the one? No, I hadn't heard. He may still come in November. I don't know. I'm not. Oh, I can't wait on anybody. I just got to keep moving.
Right,
So
right.
But I'm not putting anybody else on the air unless there's money attached to it. I can't take any more chances.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I understand.
But anyway, let's talk about this human trafficking thing and the Alabama Epstein. You draw an interesting correlation here, and I wanted to get to that. So we'll talk about that next.
Okay, and just to be clear, there's no, there's no guy here that I'm thinking of when I compare it to Epstein.
No,
Okay.
you're just making the comparison, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, but it intrigues me because, like you said, it happens all the time. It may not be Epstein; it could be anybody else.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, hang on. I appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Fred.
Tell your other half hello. I won't say better half. I'll say other half.
Good job. Will do.
All right. Hang on.
Okay, thanks.
And just like that, it's available to over 67 million job seekers. And Glassdoor only matches you with qualified applicants, so you can make the best new hire in half the resumes. Plus, Glassdoor hires are 30% more likely to stay with your company longer. Hire better, hire faster. Start your free trial today at glassdoor.com/hire.
They say timing is everything. So, starting right here, right now, it's a great time for anybody ready to get some real work done in Alabama. Wake up. It's time to grow. Because here, preparing for success starts before kindergarten, and it never, ever ends. And now, right now, we can deliver the right skills, the knowledge, the tools, and the experts to help put them all to work seamlessly. Whether you're somebody who needs to hire, somebody who wants to get hired, or a student who wants to know how to prepare to get hired. Wherever you call home in the great state of Alabama, there's a new unified force for your success and a brighter future. It's time to get to work, Alabama. Alabama works.
Sponsored by Alabama Works, the 88, and this station. Visit alabamaworks.com.
Inspiration without all that screaming. Fred Holland on 1450 AM and 105.3 FM, WTKI Talk.
Oh, how I love you.
Where do you find this stuff, Scotty? Where?
Al Martino sings about Rachel this morning.
Everybody gets a theme song, Rachel. You have no choice.
I never know what's coming with you guys.
Yeah, I know. Me either. Okay, so I wanted her to stick around because you do this 1819 podcast, which, by the way, 1819 is the birth of Alabama. Anyway, Alabama Epstein. It happens here all the time. Not to say that we have anything on the scale of Jeffrey Epstein, but it is one of those. The pattern is similar, and that's what you're pointing out here, right?
Yes, absolutely. That really, as we learn more about the awful, salacious life and mysterious death of Jeffrey Epstein, it's very important to remember that his type of crimes are far from uncommon. They actually happen all the time, even here in Alabama, which, I think it's a problem that experts agree is growing, though exact numbers are pretty difficult to quantify. It's because think about it, Fred, the victims here are the women and the children who are being sold and trafficked. However, in the past, they might have been arrested for prostitution, even minors. Now, that is changing a lot in our state. We have new laws that are focusing more on the seller side, the trafficker side, and identifying these unfortunate victims as victims rather than criminals. But this happens more than we would think. In fact, the University of Alabama conducted a study, went around the state, did some focus groups with professionals to try to quantify this problem, and they estimated that in 2017 alone, there were more than 900 potential survivors of human trafficking across our state, and that more than half of the victims were minors.
Wow. And you add to that, and we've had a number of people in to talk about the fact that I-20 is one of the corridors, and it may not even be in Alabama. It may be coming through Alabama, right?
That's right. And I think that, as I've talked to some professionals and some people who are very close to this issue, I don't think that we understand what is happening. I think we all picture. You remember that movie Taken with Liam Neeson in it? That is every parent's absolute nightmare. And I think when we think of human trafficking, particularly sex trafficking, we have these misperceptions that our children are going to we're going to be at the mall, we're going to be at Target, and someone's going to snatch them, throw them in a van, and that is what this is, that's what human trafficking, sex trafficking is. That is actually, according to the Department of Homeland Security experts, exceedingly rare. What happens more often is that at-risk youth, we're talking about children from abusive homes, maybe kids who are aging out of the foster care system, or just other children with emotional vulnerabilities, some kind of social or economic vulnerability, are being targeted and picked out by traffickers, older people who groom them and then coerce them into this life. And that is how most often, mostly women, get trapped into a life of commercial sex in our state.
And I guess what we need to come along, and I don't know how much this is growing, but if you have been a victim of this, are these people now speaking out? Are they becoming part of the solution, talking to others who might be in similar circumstances or parents? Are we getting that yet? Are we far enough along?
I think so. I think some of the stigma, again, of a survivor being able to recognize herself or himself as a survivor, as a victim, is helping some of them come forward and realize that this person who maybe groomed them, maybe told them they loved them, maybe bought them food and gave them shelter and then turned on them and started selling them, that person is not their friend, not their family member, not the person who it could be they're very emotionally attached to, and starting to look at that person as as somebody who was abusing them and psychologically separating themselves from them. That's difficult. I have learned from some of the people who serve victims, and so some of those folks are coming out and saying, wow, this is what I went through. I don't want anyone else to go through this, and I'm going to speak about it. So there are some inspiring stories, particularly from the Well House is a residential treatment facility for sex trafficking victims in Birmingham, and they serve women who some of the folks who've come through there have become to be more vocal.
I hope, because the testimony of some of these people publicly, and I know, and it's very hard because you're admitting that you've got sucked into this, but the testimony of these people, particularly you get some people who get pretty good at telling their stories, that carries so much weight with people that might fall victim to this, or parents who might see this happening to their child.
You know what I think is so important? You talk about parenting, and I'm a parent as well. I have a teenager. Doug Gilmore from Department of Homeland Security told me that traffickers know how to get in touch with our children within 20 to 30 keystrokes when they go online or on their cell phone, that the real risk is probably that device that's in their hand or the internet that they're going to go on and just that he said that there are so many predators out there just looking to steal our children's innocence. And that just hit me very hard, because some folks who get trapped, of course, most statistically speaking, are probably at risk, have an emotional vulnerability, but not all. So I think parents need to be aware that letting your kids go outside and play, or letting your teenager go to the mall. I don't know if teenagers even do that anymore. Are there even any malls left, Fred? But
not many.
But that is not as dangerous as just putting a device in their hands and not monitoring it, and not being careful about where they're going on the internet, who they're talking to on the internet. And so I think, as parents, we really have to listen and say, wow, this is a world that is out there, is happening. There is a lot of awareness going on. We are growing as a state, but the danger is real.
It's interesting because I will hear or hear of these cases where parents don't want to violate their kids' privacy, and I just raise my eyebrows and I go, what? You got to be a nosy parent. I see you're going to wake up one day and not see it coming, and you got to be, right? You just got to be nosy.
Well, and I think it's hard. Again, my 14-year-old daughter has a cell phone, and it's hard to figure out how to make sure that, the time spent on it is limited, that she is being aware of what she's putting on, any social media, and just being on top of that takes a lot of time and effort. And I think sometimes parents just give up because it feels like too much, and they just say, okay, they'll be fine. But I think that, you're right, that you do have to be on top of it. Absolutely.
And there are tools out there as well. So there are tools you can get, and there's some great opportunities out there to kind of monitor your kid. You can do the cloning of their phones and all this kind of. I don't know how it all works, but if I had a kid that age now, I would be thinking about all this stuff all the time. How do I keep track?
Right?
It's scary.
It's very scary.
It is scary. All right, so we don't have an Alabama Epstein, but it did get my attention because, like you said, it happens all the time, and maybe not at that level. But we've got some things that would curl your toes that have happened in Alabama, and I hope we stay on this topic. Hey, as always, whatever they want to know about what you guys are doing at Alabama Policy Institute, Rachel, how do they find you?
Sure, they can visit alabamapolicy.org. There will be an article up on human trafficking, and you can learn more about warning signs. If someone may be a human trafficking victim, please go to that, or you can go to the Alabama Human Trafficking Task Force website, End It Alabama, to learn more.
All right, gotcha. Rachel, as always, we appreciate it. Have a great weekend, my friend.
You too, Fred. Thanks so much. Have a great one.